are very fortunate to have the illustrious Timothy Corrigan with us. Tim is joining us from Los Angeles. So thanks for an early meeting, Tim. And I'm sure most of you know already, but Tim is one of the world's leading designers. He has offices both in Los Angeles and in Paris, and he's completed projects all over the world, including the Middle East, across the United States and Europe. He's been named to virtually every top designer list, including AD100 and the Elle Decor A list. And his work, I can't believe this, has been featured in over 1,000 publications. How do you even keep track of that, Tim? That's unbelievable.
I was shocked when we did the count.
That is incredible. Well, congratulations on that. And of course, he has a licensing collections with Schumacher, where he's done fabric and wallpaper and gorgeous furniture. And with PFM, where we have a collection of great rugs. And he also has a line with Royal Limoges, among many other things. So this is one busy man. He also has 2 books under his belt, which are, if you haven't purchased them yet, you should. They're absolutely gorgeous. They're both published by Rizzoli. Can you just remind me the names of the books?
The first one is called An Invitation to Chateau du Grand Lucé, which was my former chateau, and it really sort of invited you as if you were coming to stay as a guest for a weekend at the chateau. And the second one is called The New Elegance, and it's really about how to create wonderfully elegant rooms that are very comfortable. And that's why I was so excited today to talk about comfort and the importance of comfort in interiors.
Right. Well, we'll get into that. But first, I want to just ask you a little bit. Can you tell everybody how you got your start in design? Because I know it wasn't your first career.
Right. So I had a first career in advertising, and I was living in New York, and then was asked to move to Paris to run our European operations. And so I moved to Paris in the late 80s. And I have to say, it's really France that opened my eyes. It opened my eyes to design and art and history in a way that I think nothing else had ever done before. Because it's really a part of the French DNA, is this passion for culture and design. And so my apartment in Paris, I just furnished with things I found at the Paris flea market, which if you haven't been, you've got to go sometime. It's the world's largest flea market, and it's just amazing. You can find everything from things that cost $1 or €1 to hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's unlike any other flea market. But so I furnished my apartment with things from the flea market, from the Paris auction houses, and that someone from House and Garden magazine said, "Hey, I hear you've got a great apartment," and they ended up publishing my apartment in Paris. Then I bought an old 17th century manor house in Normandy, which I restored, and before I knew it, people were asking me if I would help them with design for their own homes. And so I started doing it really as a nighttime job. I soon realized that I really liked my nighttime job better than my daytime job. And that's really when I sort of decided to take a leap of faith. And actually, Dara, you and I met right when I think I was still working in advertising when we met. You were working at House Beautiful magazine, and we met through our mutual friend, Vincent Wolf. And I was really trying to think to myself, should I make this move? Should I do this? And I decided to take the leap of faith and start a career in interior design.
You haven't looked back, right?
Never look back. You know, it's one of those things where you have to really believe that if you have to follow your inner instincts, and it will guide you, and the universe will support you when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I believe that too. So I'm just curious, did you speak French before you moved to Paris?
I had taken a couple of years of high school French, which did not prepare me at all. But because I was also running our French agency, I had to learn very quickly. My job was an international job, so I was running 36 different offices around Europe, but I was also running our French office. So I had to learn French, and I took an 2-week intensive course. And it's funny because recently I was interviewed by the Figaro, the French newspaper, and they said, as only the French would say, they said, well, this entire interview was done with Mr. Corrigan, and he spoke totally in French, with this adorable American accent, which was just like, oh, thank you.
Of course, I had to say that.
Yes,
Yeah.
but then they said, and while his vocabulary is extraordinary, his grammar is catastrophic. So, so I know a lot of words, but I don't know how to string them together. So it's
That
sort of
is really funny.
like we talk pretty one day.
Oh my God, that's so funny. That's cute. Well, good for you for doing it in French, and that they recognize that. It sounds like you passed anyway.
Yeah, at least I think I made myself understood.
Yeah. So I know we're supposed to be talking about comfortable interiors, but before we get in, I have another question for you. So 35 offices, that's a huge amount of offices to oversee. And it must, I mean, you must approach your design business as a business. You know, I think that's one thing that a lot of creative people struggle with, right? They're creatives, they're not necessarily business people. So can you just give a couple of words of wisdom and then we'll launch into our topic?
Yeah, I think I really think that is so important. Is that what I learned is that we really are a business, and so many designers get into design because they love the design aspect. But we are taking our clients' precious earned dollars, and it really is important that we carefully spend them. I sort of always believe that one of the most important things you can do is develop a deep sense of trust with your clients. And one of the ways that you do that, I believe, is with total transparency financially. And I think even more so, I mean, it's certainly true when I started, but even more so today when consumers they can source things from almost anywhere. If you're not totally transparent, I think that is a real issue. So I think it's one of the issues that I really focused on when I started out, was running a business as a business. And so we set firm budgets with clients. We tell them anytime we get their approval, anytime we go over, we want to go over a budget. So it's really something that where they totally understand that we have their financial interests at heart. And I think that is a very important thing.
Yeah, it is. It is trust and feeling like you're taking care of them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So Annie, do you mind getting rid of the slide so we can just have Tim and myself on the screen until we go into the projects? Okay, so I always think of you as one of the most courageous people I know. You took on 2 renovations of 2 enormous chateaus, not at the same time, but one right after the other. I mean, it's mind-boggling. If you haven't seen Tim's chateau, you should look at them online. Maybe we'll see some in a few minutes, but they are massive. I mean, I can't even imagine what that must be like. But tell us a little bit how you started down that path and what you learned from those experiences. I know that could be a whole hour.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. When you say courageous, I think the word you really probably meant was crazy, because I mean, who does that? Who does that whole process? And in fairness, I've actually done 4 different chateaux for myself.
4.
I'm working on my 4th. So I think that the process of doing that, I mean, it is a crazy thing, but what I have really loved about it is the process of learning the history of a place, not just who's lived there, but what role it played in its community, the process of undoing what was done over centuries when you've got these buildings that were maybe built in the 17th century and added on to the 18th century and changed in the 19th century. The undoing of a lot of those things, it's almost an act of archaeology. You actually start to understand, gee, this wallpaper was what was underneath this other wallpaper, and below that was a different color. And you start to see design trends, you start to see all those other things. So it's like this wonderful treasure hunt that you go on when you do one of these restorations of these old buildings. But equally importantly, what you see is how people live differently in different times. So the way we live in a house today is very different than it was even in the 50s or in the turn of the century. And so to me, the challenge with these wonderful old Sleeping Beauties is figuring out how to make them relevant for today. So you don't need to have 20 maids rooms because you're not going to have one. So like, what do you do with those?
Yeah.
Most of these chateaux, well, they might have been 40,000 square feet and there were three bathrooms. And so how do you make that change so that every bedroom can have a bathroom? So it's all those different things that make it so much fun. And I would say of all the different things I've done in my life, the process of doing these chateaus have been the most transformative for me, because it is just, it's a joy. It's like, it's the process of creating these things is the real joy. When I'm done with them, it's like, okay, where's the next? Because you get a adrenaline rush from doing it.
Yeah.
So it's
Do
really,
you feel a responsibility to the houses to bring them back to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. And it's true of all of us with our homes. We are really the custodians of that home, and it's going to go on after us to someone else will be living there. And so I definitely feel responsibility, especially for these structures where like my current chateau, it was, really the first people after 400 years of the same family living there. And so they all have, I've known family members, I've got to know them, and they're passionate and want to know what I'm doing, and they approve of some things and disapprove of other things, but that's part of the fun of it. It's great.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, it is somewhat ironic though, that you have these enormous chateau, right? And yet we're here today to talk about comfortable, livable interiors. Like, isn't there something of a disconnect there, that you're drawn to those kinds of spaces?
Okay, so it's really interesting. Living in Europe for all the years that I did, I learned to appreciate really grand rooms with incredible architectural detail. But what I found, particularly in France, was what was missing in a lot of them was the comfort that Americans certainly have come to expect. And so that experience of living in Europe, being in these incredible spaces, I decided that the perfect mix was to be able to combine the elegance of those spaces with much more casual and comfortable ways of living, that is sort of epitomized by California, where I'm from. I think people think of California as this laid back approach. So if you can marry those two together, I think that's the best of all worlds. And I remember when I was first named the AD 100 in the early 2000s, they actually made a point of this weird notion that I thought that comfort was as important as beauty. And as if this was some new idea that a room should be comfortable. It was like, well, that seems kind of natural to me that comfort should be a part of it. And I even remember our friend Deborah Needleman, who the editor of Domino magazine, where you worked for a period, was going over to stay at my chateau in France, and she had young kids at the time. They're now in college, but by the time, and she even called me and she said, well, do I need to like pack straight jackets for the kids because I'm so worried about that they're breaking things. And I said, trust me, you're going to find this to be like really comfortable. You're not going to have to worry about it. And she was so shocked, because she stayed there for a couple of weeks. She was so shocked that she ended up writing a letter from the editor in Domino about, and I remember she said, well, it was certainly the schmanciest place I've ever stayed. It was also the most comfortable. And I thought that was, to me, it was like, wow, that's what you want. You want someplace to be beautiful and elegant, but you also want to have comfort. And there's no reason you have to trade off comfort for beauty and elegance. And so that's why it's been a part of the way. It was my background in advertising. I even decided that we were going to have a slogan for our company, which was a world of comfortable elegance. And comfort has been really the cornerstone of everything that I do.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I don't think that they necessarily go hand in hand. I mean, maybe more and more so, but I do think that you were very instrumental in sort of making that a topic that's important.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, though very different, obviously, than a 17th century chateau, McMansions can be quite formal and large. Do you have any advice to designers who are, or design aficionados who live in McMansions or are decorating McMansions?
Yeah, I would say that we've done a lot of McMansions, and I'm always sort of surprised by the architect. I always sort of wonder, what was the architect thinking? So many of these houses have very tall rooms, but the proportions of the room are not the rooms aren't big enough for those tall ceilings, and so you just feel awkward. It feels uncomfortable. You feel like you're almost in a silo. And I can't tell you how many projects we've done where I've walked in and there'll be 22-foot ceilings in a room that is maybe 12 by 15 or something, and you go, wow, what is this? You're never gonna. It's really awkward. So you have to fight that. You have to figure out, how do I counterbalance that? And we actually do that with every room we're ever given. Is we say, okay, what are the positive things about this room? And what are the negatives? What are the things that really make this room problematic? And then figure out how to solve them. So it's not just in a McMansion, it's really in any room, because every room will have inherent strengths and weaknesses. And you have to figure out how to maximize the strengths and minimize the weaknesses. So for example, with a tall room, you have to figure out how to make that upper level, bring it down and relate to the lower, down to the space you're living. So we'll often put three-dimensional objects where we'll have plaster rondelles or reliefs made, things that actually start to give something to look at and focus on up at those upper levels and bring it down. You've got acoustical issues in those tall rooms. People tend to echo. So you have to really think about those. And again, curtains make a huge difference. The rugs, I've had clients who say, oh, I don't want a rug in this room. I'll say, if you don't have a rug, it's gonna echo like crazy. So you really have to think about all those challenges that these big rooms have and figure out how to make them human scale, even if they are not human scale in themselves.
Interesting. That's
Does that
all
make sense?
really good advice. Really good advice. So you talk about different kinds of comfort. You talk about physical comfort, practical comfort, psychological comfort. Can you elaborate on those things?
I actually call these the 3 Ps of comfort. And because the physical aspect of comfort is it seems logical. It's like, gee, is this fabric soft to touch? Is the sofa, is it comfortable to sit in? But it's not just, there are all the ergonomic aspects of it as well. So if you're doing a sofa and you know that the client, the husband or wife, want to be able to take a nap on that sofa, is the arm of that sofa the right height for someone to put their head on and have it rested? Or is that arm so high that they couldn't use it for that? Is the back of the chair high enough? If you know you're going to be watching television from that chair, is the back of the chair high enough so that you can rest your head back without having to put a pillow up there and everything like that? So there are those very physical aspects of comfort that are the most logical ones, the ones that you probably think about. But to me, the other 2 aspects are just as important. Psychological, which is the scale of a room and therefore the scale of the furniture that goes in the room, the proportions of that, the furniture plan, getting that furniture plan right. Symmetry. We all feel more comfortable in a symmetrical space. And the reason is your mind doesn't have to work so hard to figure out, well, if this is here, what's there. Your mind kind of goes, oh, I got it. So you can relax, because anytime you walk into a room, you are being bombarded by all the elements of that room. And if the designer has worked to create a sense of comfort visually through symmetry, you will feel inherently more comfortable in that room. And color is a really important way to create comfort. If you're trying to create a room which is soothing, you probably don't want to use bright red or orange. If you're trying to create a room that's, I mean, again, it sounds so basic, but I'm always sort of surprised at people's color choices when I think about, gee, what is the intention of that room? And what do I want to feel in that room and do in that room? And the color is one of those psychological aspects that can affect how you feel comfortable in that room. And the 3rd P is the practical aspect. Every one of us have walked into a room that is basically saying, look, but don't touch. It might as well have a red rope across the room that says, don't go in here because you can't mess anything up. You can't put a drink down because, those are rooms that are inherently uncomfortable. And the reason they're uncomfortable is that they're not practical, because the host or the hostess or the owner, or they've designed this space in such a way that says, look, but don't touch. Don't really live in this room. So we really make a point of figuring out what are the practical elements that will make a room more comfortable. So for example, we put marine varnish on every wood surface, even antiques. And you can put a marine varnish that matches the finish of the wood already, but that allows you to put your hot coffee mug down on that table without worrying about leaving a ring. You can put a wet drink on it. You can do things like that. So I'll also look at other surfaces. Gee, a glass surface is easy to clean. You're not going to leave a ring. We'll use a composite stone rather than a marble, where you're going to worry about how gee, has that been sealed recently enough that I'm not going to leave a ring on it. So it's things like that. It's the reason I remember years ago when I was doing Madonna's house. She had two young children at the time. We used outdoor fabric in the kitchen, in the family room. And at the time, you could only get really heavy awning weight fabric, outdoor fabric. And so it was probably not as soft and comfortable as it could be, but it was comfortably practical. And so that her kids could spill. And I think that's why performance fabrics and the increase of outdoor fabrics being used indoors. I mean, I've been using outdoor fabric indoors for 20 years just because you can live in it and not worry about spilling. And I think that Schumacher has done such an amazing job of really understanding the importance of performance, because performance really means practical, which means comfortable. Right. So I think those are the three P's: the physical, the psychological, and the practical aspects of comfort. And when you get all three of those elements going in a room, you have rooms that really are comfortable, even if they may not look comfortable. I will tell you, a lot of my rooms, when I look at them in pictures, I say, well, that looks kind of stiff and kind of uncomfortable. But when you experience it, it's total comfortable.
I'm sure. I've been in your house in LA, so I know it is so comfortable.
They're designed to really be lived in. And yes, they may be really beautiful, but to me, the livability aspect is just as important as the beauty.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's, I can take some of that advice. I'm sure my husband would really appreciate it. So you generously brought some gorgeous slides of your work. I was hoping you could walk us through some of them. Talk about your.
And I actually, when I sent them to you, I put them in. By how I define comfort. So this first one, this is in a royal palace. It was a room which we were given, which was it was so ornate and over the top, and it had spindly gold furniture. And we actually decided to take all that off and redo it. We put this lattice work, which gave a sense of formality, but also a sense of a little more casual than you would expect in a royal palace. Put gilding behind some of the pilasters to give some glamour, but then mixed comfortable furniture in. So again, that tabletop is done with a marble that you don't have to worry about how you use it. That 18th century side table has got a marine varnish on it, so you can put a drink down and not worry. So we'll go to the next one.
So beautiful. So, but that looks like a silk velvet fabric.
No, that actually is not. It's a regular velvet. I learned. I actually use very little silk velvet because I used it once for someone who their son came in with a sweaty back. And he was wearing a shirt, but he obviously had been sweating. And he sat down for maybe 15 minutes, and we never got the stains out of that soap, that back. So I use it sparingly, just because of my concern for that.
Yeah, you know that Schumacher has a high-performance silk velvet.
Yes, and that's
So,
yeah, that's amazing. That's the only silk velvet I would use is yours.
We actually helped develop the technology, so that was pretty exciting for us. But I know it isn't, regular silk velvet is delicate. It's not for high traffic areas.
Yeah. So this was a project we did. We were trying to really sort of go for a sort of Palm Beach 1920s vibe here. And again, so it's really about comfort. And it was really a physical comfort. So it's furniture that is that you can long enough to lie down in. That chair swivels so that if you can turn and watch the TV. It's little elements that make a space feel more comfortable. The tabletop has got glass on top, so again, you don't have to worry about how you live in that space.
So beautiful.
This is my Paris apartment, and you're seeing a lot of Schumacher fabric and furniture.
And
Um,
furniture, yeah.
so the table is my Lafayette table for Schumacher, and all the fabrics you're seeing are from my first collection for Schumacher. And I really designed this to be really comfortable. Again, you don't expect in a Paris apartment like this, which is so formal, you don't expect this big overstuffed furniture. And yet that's exactly what I was going for, was this sense of it being this place where you could just lean back and be fully relaxed.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that it's relaxed and yet it's formal too. It's a wonderful dichotomy. It's fantastic. When was that apartment building built?
The building was built in 1867.
Wow,
So
beautiful.
it's a Haussmann style building. Okay, this is an interesting picture. This is, I wanted to put this in because this is actually from when I first started working in interior design, was that I found that outdoor furniture tended to be not that comfortable, certainly not as comfortable as indoor furniture. So I actually had these chairs made. These are from the 90s. I had these chairs made with a teak frame and then used outdoor foam and outdoor fabric. And so they could live outdoors, because I thought, why should your outdoors not be as comfortable as the indoors?
So ahead of your time.
Yeah, well, it just seems so logical to me. I mean, now of course, restoration hardware, everyone does this, but it was this realization that you should be able to live comfortably everywhere in the house. So that's why I wanted to show this picture. This is an interesting room. This is a room that it looks about as fancy schmancy as you can get, but it is all about comfort. Those chairs are recliners. They swivel. Behind that mirror over the fireplace is a television.
Wow.
It's all about, and on the other side is another mirror with a television. These people really were obsessed with television. I don't want, but they wanted to be able to really relax in it. So while it looks like over-the-top opulence, it is, but it's also practical. The surfaces are all ones where you can put your drinks down, you can put your feet up. They're strong enough that you can do that. In fact, you can't tell, but on the far side, there's a coffee table that actually was a bench, an 18th century bench, where I took the upholstery off and put a marble top on so that it would be strong enough that you could put your legs up on it and not worry at all. Wow. So again, it's about comfort. Beautiful, yes, but comfortable just as importantly. So
when you say there's a TV behind the mirror, what does that mean?
It's a one-way mirror. Two-way mirror rather, so that when you turn on the television, the bottom half of that mirror just becomes a television, and the top half stays mirror.
Wow.
So and it's not that expensive to do, and you only lose around 2% of the visual vibrancy of the picture.
Wow.
So I do that a lot because let's face it, people want their televisions and they're not necessarily the most, especially in a period room like this, they don't necessarily go. So we figure out ways to get televisions into rooms practically.
So who does that for you?
AV people. So we just work with them. They all know about them. There we do lifts where the painting goes up and the TV. And again, it's not that expensive to do these anymore.
Wow. Impressive.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to practical comfort. When I say practical here, this was a living room that people never used. And I said, well, what's going to get you into this room more? It didn't look like this when we did it. I said, if we put a television, will that get you to use it? And they said, no, we've got a TV room for that, a family room for that. And we started talking about different things. Which, if we put a desk in there, would that help you? No. It turned out that they loved wine. They were wine collectors, but they didn't have a big enough wine cellar. So I came up with the idea of basically building out the walls and putting refrigerated wine cabinets in. So the doors are normally all closed. Those are all refrigerated. But it becomes this beautiful wine cellar. It's now a room that they use regularly. It's probably the second most used room in the house because they both love wine. They'll go in and they'll research their wines. They'll have a small dinner party over that for 4 people over in the table. You saw it in the distance. So it's a practical use of a room. So it's not just what materials you use, but figure out what it is that's going to get you to use a room, because it's crazy to have a room that people are not using. So I really think, and a lot of people do, they'll use their dining room, they'll use it 3 times a year. Of course, they're using a lot more now because people are working at home, and that becomes their new office. But in traditional, before that, people would have the dining room they'd use very infrequently. So I'll always say, all right, let's figure out how to make your room have multi-purposes, multi-use, because that's a practical way to be comfortable in a house as well.
That was genius. Okay.
The next is this is actually my old house in Los Angeles where you were, here I wanted to show the coffee table. If you see, there's a box on that coffee table. It's a box that I found. It's a 17th century box, and I love the box. And I thought I'm going to use that as a motif for a table that I created. And I created this table, which is all with inlaid wood, beautiful inlaid woods, and some malachite and lapis. And then I intentionally wanted it to have this very high lacquer finish. It didn't have to be high lacquer, but that's not lacquer. It's actually polyurethane. I have had people, more drinks have been spilled on this table. I actually, one time, someone got up and danced on the table. And it's about people really being comfortable, because you've been practical. You've used the spaces and the materials in a way that people can live with that. And I'll tell you honestly, even the 2 fabrics you see on the chairs and the sofa, those are from my collection, my first collection with Schumacher. And Dara, if you remember, I was concerned, and I learned from you guys at Schumacher about the role of different materials and different threads and different, I'm blocking on the word, but fibers. And that's where I learned, I try to stay away from one with fabrics. And even as I was developing these fabrics with you, I was like saying, well, is there another material, another fiber we could use that's going to be less more stain resistant, because I'm always looking at that. And so even my design team, they all know that when they show me fabrics, they have to have looked at the content first to make sure that it's the right content for what I'm using it for. So the next is, this is a house we did in Beverly Hills, and this is their family room. The chair is outdoor velvet. The sofa is outdoor fabric, and even that ottoman is done in a faux leather, because I wanted them, and the chair swivels to look at the TV. I wanted them to be able to, and their dogs live in this room. So they were 2 big English bulldogs. So I really wanted this to be a room that you didn't have to worry about at all. So again, even you see the surface of the tabletop is not a fine wood that you need to worry about. It's about living very practically and comfortably in this space.
Yeah. I mean, you look at that chair, you feel like you want to just curl right up in there.
Exactly. And there's the wonderful Huntington Garden fabric.
Oh yeah.
Right on that great pillow. Okay, this is a picture from my former chateau. This was actually in one of the outbuildings, I turned it basically into the pool room, and so I stripped the columns and went back to the bare wood. And I intentionally wanted this to be a room where you could come in with wet bathing suits full of chlorine, if necessary, if that was the case, and not worry. So we used a seagrass rug. Again, used outdoor fabric on these chairs, on the sofas, and then the table has a marine varnish on it. So again, I don't want anyone to have to say, oh, I can't go into that room, I've got a wetsuit on. I want people to be able to live in these rooms. So again, if you weren't looking at the ceiling, which is clearly more rustic, the bottom part of the room looks fairly formal, but it's not. It's all about living comfortably. And part of that is living practically.
Fascinating. Okay.
Okay, this is from my last chateau. It's in the Grand Salon. Again, I was looking for the physical comfort, so that very deep sofa, all those pillows, and the chair that inherently says lean back. But those are upholstered in outdoor fabric. The rug, an Oriental rug, is a great solution for stains. They are sturdy. You can spill, you can stain on them. All the pattern hides the stain if you can't get the stain out. So again, I think that, I purposely used a darker Oriental rug here that would be more sturdy in terms of be able to stand up to being able to live in it. And I don't want people to worry, oh my God, I can't serve red wine because it's gonna ruin everything. I want people to live comfortably in their spaces. So again, a very, very grand room, but planned to be very comfortable from a practical perspective.
So beautiful. And wool rugs, I don't know if everyone knows, but they are one of the best things that in terms of wear and tear, they're really easy to clean, and they're
Absolutely
a great solution. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, this was in Beverly Hills. This was a 17th century table, and we wanted it to live outside, and so that's got a marine varnish on it. This has got a slight sheen on it, but it's got a marine varnish, and it's been living outside now for, I think, close to 15 years. It looks as good as the day we put it out there. So it's an example of using even antiques outside. Yes, it's undercover, but it's outside, and we did another one that's really outside. I'm not undercover on the same house, where by simply making sure that you've got this marine varnish on it, it can live outside. And you have to, reapply the marine varnish every 5 or so years, but it allows you to have beautiful furniture outside as well as inside.
Do you ever worry about decreasing the value of an antique by putting the varnish on it?
Well, first of all, you don't. I tend not to do it on museum. I mean, I would not probably do it on a museum quality piece where the original finish is really important. But I mean, this is a table. Yes, it's 17th century, but you could buy this online at an auction site today for $800, $1,000. So really, it's no more expensive than if you're going out to buy something from Pottery Barn, and yet you've got all the quality of it being, this incredible wood that you couldn't find anymore, et cetera, and you have not decreased the value at all.
Wow. All right, I have to just interrupt you for a second. So just to, a lot of people are asking about the marine varnish. So it's marine varnish as in the sea, marine,
Yes.
It's the kind of varnish that's applied to boats, right? The
Exactly.
boats.
And it comes, you can get it in, let's say it comes in matte, satin, semi-gloss, high gloss. So that cocktail table I showed earlier was in high gloss because I was purposely going for that. This is probably a satin finish on this table. It is truly, it is life-saving because you pour water on it and you just wipe it up. It will not destroy the wood at all. So it's something that we do on all of our pieces. When we order them, if we get new pieces made, we have a marine varnish put on as last coat. And if we're buying antiques, we have marine varnish put on.
Amazing. And then for marble, you said you often buy composite marble because that's easier to get stains out of and things.
Much easier. It does not stain. But if you are going to use regular marble, it's very easy. You just there's marble sealant that again you wipe it on, and so but you have to do it regularly. You have to do it on a marble like every 6 months to a year. But if you've got a kitchen counter that's white Carrara marble, for example, and that stains with lemon and lots of other things, if you you can have it sanded, get all the imperfections, all the stains off, have it sealed, and then you reseal it on a regular basis. But it's just I use composite often because it's one step more in terms of ease. But
and forgiving. It sounds like it's more forgiving.
Much more forgiving. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then someone asked about viscose fibers.
Okay.
Internal conversations about viscose too. I mean, there's viscose everywhere. Some people say that it shows stains more than other fabrics, but I'm not really sure that that's correct. Do you have an opinion about that?
Well, and again, I don't know whether this person was ill-informed, but I've listened to it a lot. It was it was one of your former predecessors who at Schumacher, who said to me, when you see the word viscose, think stain magnet. So I've always, at least, and I would love you to tell me no, that that's not true, because when my designers show me things with high viscose counts, I tend to sort of say, well, okay for a pillow, but not for the sofa, or okay for the drapes, but not for the this.
Right.
So,
I think it depends where on the fabric it lives. Like very often viscose is like it's not the pile, you know what I mean? It's like the substrate of the fabric. That's not really the right word, but you know what I mean.
Yes, yes.
And in those particular cases, I don't think it's a problem at all.
Okay, good. That's great to know.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Schumacher has come to the rescue to me once again. So, thank you.
Okay.
This is a room in Beverly Hills where the clients they're kind of crazy, and they have lots of crazy friends. And this was a guest bedroom. And they said, we want the equivalent of being able to go in with 409 and clean every surface afterwards, because we don't want to have to worry about what our guests have done in the guest room. So this is outdoor carpet. It's everything. The bed is outdoor velvet. The curtains are outdoor velvet. We upholstered the walls in Schumacher or white velvet. I mean, it's a completely indoor-outdoor room that can be it can live up to any activity that goes on there. So. But that, if you think about it, is a practical comfort. You don't have to worry about what your guests do.
Wow, that's amazing.
Probably more information than you wanted there. I showed this picture because really of the coffee table I love Ottoman coffee tables, but a lot of Ottomans mean that you have to then put a tray, because the Ottoman, a glass, you can't put a glass down, etc. So I will often do things like where the outer part of this coffee table is soft like an Ottoman, and then it transitions to a hard surface. I also do it where it transitions to a slightly firmer surface, but still with a faux leather. Again, so that people can put their feet up and not worry about how they're living in that space, and not worry about knocking over a drink if it's on the coffee table. So that's why I wanted to show this slide. And I think that's the end for practical. Now I'm going to go to psychological. Okay, this is in a royal palace. The proportions of this room, I think that sofa is 16 feet long. And it was a very big room with very high ceilings. And so what I did was, you can see, I purposely I had to figure out how to make this room feel more cozy, but they wanted to be able to entertain a lot of people. And then there's also a big 72-inch or 90-inch television on this back wall. So they wanted to have a lot of people to be able to watch TV. But from a psychological standpoint, I purposely did a very long sofa, and used a very big pattern on that rug to make the space not feel. If you used a little pattern on that rug, that room would feel even bigger. I introduced all that plaster work on the and the bookcases to help give depth to the room, to help fill that out. So I very consciously took a big room and tried to make it feel more intimate and more of a human scale.
Yeah, and there's a lot of symmetry in that room, but but like the two tables, they're friends, but they're not identical.
They're probably cousins, but not twins.
Exactly.
Yeah. The next is this is in another, what could be called a McMansion. This was a 45,000 square foot house.
Wow.
This is one of the entrances to the house. And I think it's like 80 feet long or something. And we were given this project when all we were given was just a box. We got to design every detail, the ceilings, the floors, everything. So here, what I wanted to do was, I again needed to make this space feel not like a hotel lobby. And so I again chose a very big pattern marble. This is the pattern of the floor I actually took from the famous Chateau de Grousset outside of Paris, and mixed this very strong, bold colors of marble, because I was really trying to make the space not feel so vast. And so whereas if I'd used all light marble, that would have even felt bigger, which you didn't want. I introduced the groin vaults and then added the not only the architectural detailing, but the faux painting that helped make that space feel more intimate, and then had a series of seating areas in this long hallway to make it feel more comfortable. Because psychologically, walking into a space this big, I couldn't. The building was already built. The frames were up. I couldn't change the spaces, but what I could do was make those spaces, try to make them more livable. So that's an example of how I did that in this space.
Yeah, I mean, just with the ceiling and the columns, and you almost created separate rooms, right?
Right. Exactly. And so
Carved
psychologically, it
Yeah.
creates a sense of comfort psychologically, because it's not just this long hallway.
Mhm.
The next slide is the opposite. It's a tiny room. And people often say, gee, for the small room, use small furniture. I purposely went against that. I went with very overstuffed, big furniture, because I was not trying to go for the glamour and grandeur of this room. I was trying to create a room of intimacy. And so, again, the overstuffed furniture was a clear effort to do that. And the other thing I was trying to do, the reason that I used yellow and red, because those are colors that are warm, inviting colors, and it creates a sense of intimacy. A cool color in this space, you wouldn't have gotten that same sense of come in, sit down, relax. So it was, again, that's how psychologically color and the scale of the furniture makes this space feel comfortable.
So beautiful. You really succeeded. It's amazing.
The next is a bedroom, and here I often will do upholstered walls. These walls are all upholstered in a linen, the same linen that's hanging on the bed as bed hangings, and I do that oftentimes because I find an upholstered room one of the easiest, best ways to make a room feel cozy and inviting. You're not even necessarily, it's one of those psychological things. You can't tell in the picture. It looks like wallpaper, it looks like paint. But when you walk in, the slight padding of an upholstered room gives a sense of being cocooned and coziness. And to me, a bedroom is all about feeling, it should be the ultimate place of feeling safe, feeling protected, feling cocooned. So that's really what I did here. And the bed hangings do that as well. They help create this safe little nook. Bed hangings were originally done to keep the cool air out in earlier days. Now I think what they do is they create a sense of intimacy. And that's why I will do that often in a bedroom. So that's it's a way to feel psychologically comfortable in this space, because this was a very big bedroom. And again, I was trying to figure out how to offset that aspect of being a too big a bedroom and still making it feel cozy.
Beautiful.
This is from my apartment in Paris. And here, the room was totally asymmetrical. The fireplace was not centered on the wall. The window was not centered on that wall. The chandelier was not centered on the fireplace it was a mess from a symmetrical standpoint. And yet I know that symmetry is very important, and especially for a bedroom. So here I decided to cover up all the asymmetrical problems by just covering them up by literally draping the entire room in fabric. And that's my wonderful Cap Ferrat fabric for Schumacher. It created, this is my bedroom, it creates this sense, again, of at night, I just close those curtains. Other ones you open up and there's a closet behind it. So it's this sort of magical, safe space. And it's that aspect, again, of psychological comfort. You cannot help but feel cocooned and safe in a room like this. And that's, again, what I think bedrooms are all about.
So just to clarify, having the walls curtained that way, it draws your eye away from the imperfections of the lack of symmetry.
Yeah, so like let me show you, for example, yes, if because you're getting all that pattern, the pattern's starting to block it. And then I did other tricks, like I put a mirror that looks like a window over the fireplace, roughly trying to make that wall feel more centered. So it sort of mimics the window over the other window. It's other things, but it's the draping, but the draping really does help hide weird things in rooms.
Cool.
This was a project, again, it's the same house that had the 45,000 square foot house. This is the owner's, this is the master's sitting room, looks back into it. And again, it was just too big a space, so I divided the space up. There's more of a hallway aspect, and then I created that sort of barrel vaulted room where the squares go up the sides of the walls and then go around. And what I did was, you can't see it in this picture, but I used a very light shade of blue around each square. And as each square goes up, it gets a little lighter blue, a little lighter blue. So it goes up and to the top, it's just totally all white. What it did was it created a sense of warmth when you're down low, and then, as if you're looking up at the sky above. So, and again, those other architectural elements that help make this space feel more comfortable, because it was just too big a room, frankly, for its own good.
That is beautiful.
Okay, this is one I did, powder rooms. People often are afraid, sorry, I'm right, fire engines going by, but people, powder rooms, people often go into a powder room and yes, there may be a fan to help block some of the noise, but noise leaks. We're dealing with a project in Houston right now where the powder room is directly next to the dining room, and every sound you make in that is heard in the dining room. So here, what we did was we actually paneled the walls and then upholstered the walls with fabric, because that it's the best sound absorption you can get. So it helps this, I'm using this as this idea of practical or psychological, but practical comfort as well, is that you don't have to worry so much about when you're in that room and people outside don't have to hear you. So again, it's figuring out how to psychologically make someone feel more comfortable, even when they're using the powder room.
Beautiful.
This is a psychological way. This was a small room, and by using the same fabric on the walls, the curtains, even the bed hangings, it made the room feel bigger because you have the same pattern that gets repeated. I learned this from a landscape architect many years ago who said, if you have a small garden and you want to make it look bigger, use the same plant repeatedly, because it will make the space, it'll make the garden feel bigger. So that same thing applied here, is just by using the same fabric everywhere, it made the room psychologically feel bigger, because it was a tiny, tiny room.
Fascinating.
And I think the last picture we're going to show is these are I chose these because I really want to talk about these. These are three of our things that we developed with Schumacher. The left is called the wave chair. I designed that very ergonomically in mind. It's high enough so you can lean back and watch television. The arms are shaped in such a way that it exactly cradles your elbow and then puts your arm up. And it's all about, I remember going down to the factory in North Carolina and doing set tests when we were doing the prototype and saying, no, you need more fabric on the back of the chair so that where you don't feel the wood frame. It's all those little details that will make a piece of furniture more comfortable. So I designed that first and foremost for how you would sit in it. Likewise, the coffee table, which is the Lafayette coffee table. I think we saw it in a white version of it in my apartment in Paris. I designed that where with the tray underneath, because we've all got stuff. Nice to have books and magazines and maybe a throw, whatever, to let you put things underneath. So it's practical in that respect. And yet, and that's done out of cane, so it gives a nice lightness. But then the top is done with antique mirror. So again, you can put a drink down and not worry about leaving a stain. It's strong enough you can put your feet up on the table and not worry about it. So again, it's beautiful, but it's practically comfortable as well. And the final is Hedgerow trellis fabric. fabrics for Schumacher, which is a solution dyed acrylic outdoor fabric. And what I love about it, it comes in multiple colors, and I use it a lot. We did. There's a white version. We did the fanciest Park Avenue, full floor Park Avenue apartment overlooking Central Park, etc. And the sofas in this very formal living room are done in the white version of this hedgerow trellis, because again, they didn't want to have to worry about, it's a big Hollywood, a big Broadway producer, and she has lots of parties after openings there. And she's like, I don't want to have to worry about people living in this, partying in this house. Mm-hmm. And so again, solution dyed acrylic was the answer there. So those are the end of my pictures.
Well done. My God, I can see why you've gotten 1,000 press stories. Really incredible.
Thank you.
So you have quite a lot of questions. I'm going to launch into them. And if I have time, I'll ask you one more.
Okay, great.
Okay. How did you hang the mirror over the fabric? So that must be your bedroom in Paris.
Okay, great, easy. What I did was I just took, took basically almost like the equivalent of a potted plant hanger at the top, and then hung it there with monofilament fishing wire, like the clear thing, and then put a L bracket down below, and it so it keeps the mirror being flat.
Right. So it doesn't got it. Okay, interesting. Next is, how do you upholster a powder room and not worry about water damage?
Again, what we do is try to use solution dyed acrylic for that, so that it can be cleaned. But what we'll also often do is in the area near the toilet, because men are not as necessarily neat as women in a powder room, we'll often do just full wood at that area, and only do the upholstery from wainscoting up above.
Okay, makes sense. Living in the country during pandemic, how to deal with bedroom with vaulted ceilings and windows on 3 sides?
Cathedral ceilings, I think, for bedrooms are really problematic. I lived in one once, and I never felt really that comfortable in it, because it's just the ceilings are so high. And you have to really figure out in those ceilings, in those rooms, you got to figure out what you're going to put up on the walls, or hang things down. If you're not going to hang a chandelier, hang a mobile, hang something that's going to bring the height down into the area where you live, because otherwise they're just a little overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So someone asked who the outdoor fabric is by. It's by Schumacher, Timothy Corrigan for Schumacher.
Yes.
What is composite marble?
Composite marble is actually, it's quartz that's been crushed, and it's recreated with like a resin. And so the only place you cannot use it for is a fireplace surround, because of the heat, but you can use it any place else. It can be for countertops and kitchens, anywhere. And there are so many amazing composite stones now that you cannot tell the difference oftentimes between a composite and a marble.
Okay. And then there's a question about, are you concerned with the chemical content of outdoor fabric versus natural fabrics?
I think that the VOC issue is I think with most solution dyed acrylics is not an issue. I think some of the polyesters are more of an issue. And maybe you know more about that, Dara, than I do, but my understanding is that solution dyed acrylic, because the way it's created, does not have the same off-gassing that some other non-natural fibers would have.
Right. And we also at Schumacher have a new line of natural linens. They're actually natural linen that are outdoor appropriate, if you can believe it or not.
Right.
So that's exciting. I mean, I worry about that too. I mostly not so, I don't worry about the off-gassing, because I don't think that's the issue. It's just like they're not biodegradable, right? So, but you're creating interiors that last a lifetime. So I think that's as also a way of thinking about sustainability. You're not creating things that are meant to be thrown away next year.
Well, and it's interesting, we use a lot of antiques, and because if you think about it, antiques are the ultimate in green, because they've been around, they've been reused and reused, and you're not cutting down any new trees for any of those pieces.
Exactly. So I'll just finish with one last question. What advice do you have for a designer just starting out?
I would say two things. One is learn architectural art and decorative art history, because there are no new ideas. It all comes back, and it's all cyclical. You'll go from modernism to maximalism. Again and again and again. It's happened throughout history. You look at Art Nouveau and it went to Art Deco, two extremes. It's just going to keep happening. So when you understand history, you're actually able to better figure out how to mix elements, and you're a better designer. So I think that would be the first thing. The second thing I'd say is get the furniture plan right, because if the furniture plan is not right, and the scale is not right, or the furniture is not right for that room, no matter how many beautiful fabrics you put in there, no matter how gorgeous the rugs, the room is not going to work really well. So you cannot. Pretty does not fix a bad furniture plan. So that, I think, is critically important.
Right. So start with the skeleton.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Tim, you are a gem. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's such a great treat to be with you, Dara.
Fun, and for all of your generosity. Thanks for sharing all your amazing.
Thank you. And thank you to Schumacher, because truly, Schumacher, I think, has set throughout this entire pandemic, has led the way in terms of your talks, Benny's talks on business, and all the things you're doing on Instagram. I just think Schumacher is truly amazing. So thank you, Schumacher. You are a true godsend to our industry.
Thanks so much, Tim.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon. Bye.
Absolutely. Lots of love. Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. Bye.